Tom Walker wiped the sweat from his forehead and squinted at the afternoon sun. His cornfield stretched out before him, golden stalks swaying in the warm breeze. Harvest season was always his favorite time of year, but today something felt off. His dog Rex kept barking at the eastern edge of the property, which wasn't like him at all. "What's got you all worked up, boy?" Tom called out, but Rex just kept barking. Tom grabbed his work gloves and headed toward the commotion. As he pushed through the tall corn, he heard it. A soft whimpering sound, like a child crying but trying to stay quiet. His heart jumped. Kids didn't wander out this far from town, not to his farm anyway. "Hello?" Tom called gently. "Anyone there? You hurt?" The whimpering stopped. Tom moved slower now, careful not to scare whoever was hiding. Then he saw her. Tucked behind a broken corn stalk was the strangest sight he'd ever witnessed. A little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, but her skin shimmered like liquid silver in the sunlight. Her eyes were huge and violet-colored, filled with absolute terror. She wore torn clothing that looked like it was made from some kind of metallic fabric. Blood trickled down her small arm from a nasty cut near her elbow. Tom's first thought wasn't about how impossible this was. His first thought was that a child was hurt and scared on his property. "Hey there, sweetheart," he said in the same soft voice he used with spooked horses. "My name's Tom. I'm not gonna hurt you. I promise." The girl pressed herself further into the corn, her whole body trembling. She opened her mouth, but the sounds that came out weren't any language Tom recognized. Musical almost, like wind chimes. It's okay, Tom held up his hands to show he wasn't armed. "Let me see that arm. Looks like it hurts pretty bad." Before he could get closer, Rex started barking again, but this time it was his warning bark. The one he used when strangers showed up uninvited. Tom's instincts kicked in. He looked past the cornfield toward the dirt road that led to his property. 3 figures were walking across his land. They didn't move like people though. One was tall and reptilian-looking, scales catching the light. Another had too many arms. The third wore armor that seemed to shift colors. All of them carried weapons that definitely weren't from any sporting goods store Tom had ever seen. They held scanning devices that beeped and flashed as they swept across his field. Tom's gut told him everything he needed to know. These people were hunting the little girl. "All right, kiddo, change of plans," Tom said quickly. He didn't wait for permission. He scooped the girl up in his arms. She weighed almost nothing. She struggled for just a second, then seemed to realize he was trying to help. Her little hands gripped his shirt tight. "Stay quiet now. Real quiet," Tom whispered. He moved fast through the corn, taking paths only he knew after 30 years working this land. His grandfather had built a storm cellar under the barn back during the Cold War, paranoid about nuclear attacks that never came. The entrance was hidden under old hay bales, and the walls were solid concrete 2 feet thick. If there was any place to hide someone, that was it. Tom got to the barn and pulled aside the bales with one arm while holding the girl with the other. The heavy cellar door groaned as he yanked it open. "Down here," he said, carrying her down the steep wooden steps. He found an old blanket his grandmother had made and wrapped it around the girl's shoulders. She was still shaking like a leaf. "I'll be right back. Stay here and stay quiet. Can you do that for me?" The girl stared at him with those huge violet eyes and nodded slowly. Tom climbed back up and had just repositioned the hay bales when he heard heavy footsteps on his porch. He walked out of the barn trying to look casual, even though his heart was hammering in his chest. The 3 armed figures stood in his yard. Up close they were even more intimidating. The reptilian one had teeth like daggers. Its yellow eyes fixed on Tom with cold calculation. "Human," it hissed, the word dripping with contempt. "We track dangerous creature. Scanner show it come here. You will let us search." Tom crossed his arms and planted his feet. He'd dealt with plenty of bullies in his 53 years. These ones just happened to be from outer space. "I don't know what you're talking about," Tom said flatly. "And I don't care what your scanner says. This is private property and you're trespassing." The creature with multiple arms stepped forward. "You do not understand importance. We have authority from Galactic Trade Commission to retrieve escaped specimen." "Specimen?" Tom's jaw clenched. "You mean a scared little kid bleeding in a cornfield?" "It is not your concern, human. Move aside." Tom didn't budge. "Here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna get off my land right now. I don't care what galactic whatever you work for. On Earth, we have laws about private property and children. And I'm guessing you don't have any warrants signed by a human judge." The reptilian one growled low in its throat. Its hand moved toward its weapon. Tom's own hand drifted toward the hunting rifle mounted inside his door frame. He might not win this fight, but he wouldn't make it easy. The third hunter, the one in shifting armor, put a hand on the reptilian's shoulder. The human is right. We have no jurisdiction here. Killing him would bring their authorities. We must pursue other methods. The reptilian one snarled but backed down. We will return. The creature cannot hide forever. They walked back toward their ship, which Tom now noticed was parked just beyond his tree line. It looked like a metal insect, all angles and dark surfaces. The ship lifted off silently and disappeared into the clouds. Tom waited a full 5 minutes before going back to the barn. His hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was wearing off. He opened the cellar door and climbed down. The little girl was exactly where he'd left her, wrapped in the blanket and crying silently. "Hey now, it's okay," Tom said gently. "They're gone. You're safe." He went back upstairs and grabbed his first aid kit, a thermos of soup left over from lunch, and a flashlight. When he returned, he cleaned the cut on her arm as carefully as he could. She winced but didn't pull away. Her silver skin felt warm and surprisingly human under his touch. "Must hurt pretty bad, huh?" Tom opened the thermos. "Here, try this. It's chicken noodle soup. My own recipe." The girl looked at the soup suspiciously, then her stomach growled loud enough for both of them to hear. She took a small sip and her eyes widened. She drank the rest quickly. "Slow down there, you'll make yourself sick," Tom chuckled. But he was glad to see her eating. "I'm gonna call you Stella for now. That okay? You keep drawing stars in the dirt, so Stella seems fitting." The girl looked at him and something in those alien eyes looked grateful. She pointed at herself. "Stella," she repeated in that musical voice. It was a start. The first morning after finding Stella, Tom woke up before dawn like always. He made coffee and scrambled some eggs, then realized he had no idea if alien kids could even eat eggs. He grabbed an apple too, just in case, and headed to the barn. When he opened the cellar door, Stella was curled up in the corner exactly where he'd left her. She hadn't moved all night. Her violet eyes tracked his every movement, still wary but not quite as terrified as yesterday. "Morning, kiddo," Tom said softly. "Brought you breakfast. Got eggs and an apple. You just point at what looks good to you." Stella stared at both options like they might bite her. Finally, she reached for the apple. She sniffed it carefully, then took a tiny bite. Her face lit up and she devoured the rest in seconds. Tom laughed. "Apples it is then. Good choice." Over the next few days, Tom established a routine. He'd bring food 3 times a day and sit with Stella while she ate. He didn't push her to talk or come upstairs. He just sat there, sometimes humming old country songs his mother used to sing, sometimes talking about his day. "Rex caught a rabbit this morning," Tom said on the 3rd day. "Didn't hurt it, just wanted to play. Dogs got no sense sometimes." Stella tilted her head, listening. She pulled out a stick of charcoal from somewhere in her torn clothing and started drawing on the concrete floor. First she drew what looked like a dog, then a rabbit, then both of them playing together. "Hey, you're pretty good at that," Tom said. "You like drawing?" Stella nodded eagerly. She drew more pictures. A house that looked like a palace with tall spires. A woman with the same silver skin and a crown. Then she drew herself as a tiny figure next to the woman, holding her hand. Tom's chest tightened. "That your mama?" Stella's eyes filled with tears. She nodded. "We'll figure out how to get you home safe," Tom promised. "But those hunters are still looking. I saw their ship pass over twice yesterday. We gotta be smart about this." On the 4th day, Tom decided Stella needed fresh air. Keeping a kid locked in a cellar wasn't right, even for her own safety. He waited until early morning when the mist still hung low over the fields. "Come on," he said, offering his hand. "I want to show you something." Stella hesitated, then took his hand. Her fingers were small and warm. Tom led her out of the barn and toward the chicken coop. The hens were just waking up, clucking softly. "These are my chickens," Tom explained. "They give me eggs every day. Want to help collect them?" He showed Stella how to reach gently into the nesting boxes. The first time a hen squawked at her, Stella jumped back. But Tom just laughed and showed her it was okay. Soon Stella was giggling as the chickens pecked around her feet, completely unafraid. "See? They know you're a friend now," Tom said. After that, collecting eggs became their morning ritual. Stella would wake up excited, tugging on Tom's sleeve to hurry up. She learned to scatter feed for the chickens and even named a few of them. The brown one with the attitude became Coco. The white one who followed Stella everywhere became Cloud. Tom taught her other farm tasks too. How to pull weeds in the garden without damaging the vegetables. How to tell when tomatoes were ripe. How to pump water from the old well. Stella was a fast learner and she seemed to relax more each day. One afternoon, Tom was fixing a broken fence post when Stella wandered over with a handful of wildflowers. She'd picked them from the edge of the property. Without a word, she tucked one behind Tom's ear. Tom touched the flower and smiled. "Well, don't I look fancy now?" Stella giggled. It was the first time he'd heard her really laugh, and it sounded like music. But the peace never lasted long. The hunters kept coming back. Tom would spot their ships circling overhead or see strange figures lurking near his property line. His neighbor Bill stopped by one evening looking worried. "Tom, there's talk in town," Bill said quietly. "Strange folks asking questions about your farm. Offering money for information. Big money. They say what they're looking for? Some kind of rare creature. Said it's dangerous." Bill glanced toward the barn. "You got something you need to tell me?" Tom met his old friend's eyes. "The less you know, the safer you are. But I promise you, there's nothing dangerous here except maybe my cooking." Bill didn't look convinced, but he nodded. "You need help, you call me. Don't care what kind of trouble it is." That night, Tom reinforced the cellar. He brought down more blankets, a battery-powered lamp, and some of his grandmother's old books with pictures. Stella couldn't read English yet, but she loved looking at the illustrations. He also started teaching her simple words. He'd point at objects and say their names. Chair. Table. Cup. Dog. Stella would repeat them in her musical voice, each word sounding like a song. "Tom," she'd say, pointing at him. "That's right. I'm Tom." "Tom, friend." His throat got tight. "Yeah, kiddo. I'm your friend." One morning about a week in, Tom was teaching Stella how to make bread. He measured flour while she watched with intense concentration. He let her crack the eggs, even though she got shell in the bowl. He showed her how to knead the dough, pushing and folding until it was smooth. Stella's first loaf came out lopsided and slightly burned on one side. Tom cut a thick slice anyway and took a big bite. "Best bread I ever had," he declared. Stella knew he was exaggerating, but she smiled anyway. She took her own bite and made a face that said it needed work. They both laughed. That afternoon, they were hanging laundry on the line when Rex started barking his warning bark. Tom grabbed Stella and they ducked into the barn just as a ship passed low overhead. Its scanner beam swept across the property, painting everything in blue light. Stella clutched Tom's shirt, trembling again. Tom held her close. "It's okay. The cellar walls are too thick. They can't detect you through all that concrete. Grandpa built it to survive nuclear war. It'll protect you from some scanner." But even as he said it, Tom knew this couldn't last forever. The hunters were getting bolder. More desperate. Eventually they'd try something drastic. That night, Stella drew another picture. This time it showed Tom standing in front of her with his arms spread wide, protecting her from dark figures. She'd drawn a heart above his head. Tom looked at that drawing for a long time. This little girl had lost everything. Been hunted like an animal. And somehow, on his quiet farm, she'd started to feel safe again. Started to smile and laugh and be a kid. He'd be damned if he let anyone take that away from her. "Don't worry, Stella," Tom said quietly. "Nobody's getting past me. I promise you that." Stella hugged him tight. She still couldn't say much English, but Tom understood her perfectly. Tom was fixing the tractor engine when Bill's truck came roaring up the driveway, kicking up dust. His neighbor practically fell out of the cab, waving a tablet computer. "Tom, you need to see this right now," Bill said, his face pale. Tom wiped his hands on a rag and took the tablet. The screen showed some kind of galactic network, translated into English. At the top was a bounty notice with a picture that made his blood run cold. It was Stella, or at least a formal portrait of her in fancy clothes. The reward amount had so many zeros Tom had to count them twice. "That's enough money to buy a planet," Bill whispered. "Tom, what the hell have you gotten yourself into?" Tom handed back the tablet, his jaw tight. "I found a scared kid who needed help. That's all that matters." "That's not all that matters. There are 12 different species of bounty hunters flooding the county. I've seen ships landing in fields, strangers asking questions at the diner, weird tracks in the woods. They're turning over every rock looking for her." "Then I better make sure they don't find her." Bill grabbed Tom's shoulder. "This is serious. These aren't just hunters, they're professional killers. Some of them have reputations that would make your hair turn white." "My hair's already half white," Tom said. Look, I appreciate the warning. But I'm not handing over a child to people who treat her like property. Bill studied his friend for a long moment. You're really gonna do this? Stand against half the galaxy for one kid? Yep. You're the stubbornest man I ever met. Bill sighed. Fine. But at least let me help. I've got some old motion sensors from my security business. We can set up a perimeter. Tom clasped his friend's hand. Thanks, Bill. They spent the afternoon rigging up defenses. Motion sensors around the property line. Bright floodlights that could be triggered remotely. Tom even dug some shallow trenches near the main access points and covered them with tarps and dirt. Not enough to seriously hurt anyone, but enough to slow them down and make noise. His two dogs, Rex and Daisy, had been acting on edge for days. Tom started keeping them closer to the house, trusting their instincts. If something approached, they'd know before any sensor would. That evening, Tom brought Stella her dinner in the cellar. She'd gotten comfortable enough that she didn't flinch when he came down anymore. She was drawing another picture, this time of the chickens. Stella, listen to me, Tom said seriously. Things are gonna get dangerous for a while. If you hear loud noises or shouting, you stay down here no matter what. Don't come up until I come get you personally. Understand? Stella's violet eyes widened with fear, but she nodded. Good girl. It's gonna be okay. I promise. But Tom wasn't sure he could keep that promise. The first real attack came at 2 in the morning. Rex and Daisy started barking like crazy. Tom jerked awake and grabbed his grandfather's hunting rifle from beside the bed. He'd loaded it earlier, something he never did unless he was actually hunting. Through his bedroom window, he saw 6 figures moving across his field. They were trying to be stealthy but his motion sensors picked them up. Tom flipped the switch for the floodlights. The entire front yard lit up like daytime. The hunters froze, blinded. One of them stumbled directly into the first trench with a loud yelp. Another tripped over him trying to help. Tom opened his window and fired a shot into the air. The crack of the rifle echoed across the farm. That's your only warning. Tom shouted. Next shot won't be aimed at the sky. Rex and Daisy were going absolutely wild now, barking and snarling from the porch. The hunters scrambled back toward their ship, dragging their clumsy friends with them. Tom watched until their ship lifted off and disappeared. His hands were shaking. He'd just shot at alien bounty hunters. This was really happening. Bill arrived 20 minutes later, still in his pajamas with a shotgun. Heard the shot from my place. You okay? For now. But they'll be back with more friends. And they were. Over the next 3 days, hunters tried everything. A reptilian bounty hunter attempted to sneak in through the cornfield during the day. Daisy tracked her by scent and chased her off before she got within 100 yards of the barn. 2 bird-like aliens tried coming from above at dusk. Tom spotted them with binoculars and fired warning shots that sent them scrambling. A heavily armored hunter walked straight up the driveway in broad daylight, apparently confident his shields would protect him. Tom turned the irrigation system on full blast. Turns out alien shield technology doesn't work so well when it's trying to repel several hundred gallons of water. The hunter slipped in the mud and retreated, cursing in a language Tom didn't understand. But Tom knew he was just getting lucky. These were solo hunters or small groups testing his defenses. Eventually someone smarter would come with a real plan. He started sleeping in the barn, keeping watch over the cellar entrance. Stella would draw pictures to pass the time, and Tom would tell her stories about growing up on the farm. His parents. His grandparents. How his grandmother once chased off a black bear with nothing but a broom and a loud voice. People underestimate humans, Tom said. We're not the strongest or the fastest. But we're stubborn. And we protect what matters to us. Stella drew a picture of Tom holding his rifle, with Rex and Daisy beside him. She made him look like a superhero. I'm no hero, kiddo. Just a farmer who can't walk away from someone who needs help. On the 4th night, Bill brought news that made everything worse. There's a ship that landed near town. Big one. The alien inside calls himself a master tracker. He's got a reputation across 6 star systems for never failing a hunt. He's asking questions about you specifically now. Tom's stomach dropped. How long before he comes here? Day or 2, maybe. He's thorough. Studying the area, talking to people, learning everything about you. Bill hesitated. Tom, this guy doesn't fail. Ever. Maybe it's time to call someone official. The military or something. And tell them what? That I'm harboring an alien princess? They'd take Stella away and who knows what would happen to her. At least here I can protect her. Can you though? Can you really stop a professional? Tom looked toward the barn where Stella was sleeping. He thought about her laugh when the chickens pecked at her feet. The way she'd started calling him friend. How she'd stopped flinching at every sound and started smiling again. I have to try. The next morning, Tom reinforced everything. He moved his grandfather's old gun collection into the barn. Not to use, just to have options. He filled buckets with nails and broken glass to scatter if anyone got too close. He even rigged up some of his tractor parts to make loud alarm systems. Stella watched him work with worried eyes. It's okay, Tom told her, though he wasn't sure he believed it himself. We've made it this far, haven't we? That night, Tom sat on his porch with his rifle across his lap. The stars were bright overhead. Somewhere up there was Stella's real home. A palace. A mother who missed her. A throne she'd inherit someday. But right now, she was here. A scared little girl who'd learned to trust again. Who'd found safety on a simple farm with a stubborn old man who refused to give up on her. Tom heard the barn door creak. Stella shouldn't be out of the cellar. He turned and saw her peeking around the corner, clutching her blanket. Can't sleep? Tom asked gently. Stella shook her head. She came and sat beside him on the porch steps. She didn't say anything, just leaned against his side. Tom put his arm around her shoulders. Whatever comes, kiddo, we face it together. That's what family does. Stella looked up at him and smiled. She pointed at the stars, then at Tom, then at herself. Tom understood. Her home was up there, but right now, home was also here. In the distance, a ship's lights moved across the sky. The master tracker was getting closer. But so what? Tom had faced droughts that killed his crops. Winters that froze his pipes. Banks that tried to take his land. He was still here. Still standing. Some alien tracker wanted to test that? Let him come. Tom wasn't going anywhere. Tom was feeding the chickens when the sky darkened. Not with clouds, but with the shadow of a massive ship descending toward his field. This wasn't like the smaller hunter vessels. This thing was the size of his entire barn, gleaming silver and covered in elegant designs that looked almost like artwork. Rex and Daisy barked, but Tom put a hand on their heads to calm them. Easy now. Let's see what this is about. The ship landed gently, barely disturbing the corn. A ramp extended and 6 figures walked out wearing flowing robes that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. They moved with grace and purpose. At the front was a tall woman with skin like polished pearl and eyes that glowed faintly gold. Tom set down the chicken feed and walked toward them, his rifle left deliberately on the porch. Something told him bullets wouldn't matter here anyway. You must be Tom Walker, the woman said in perfect English, her voice musical but commanding. That's me. And you are? I am Ambassador Lyra of the Celestial Court. We've come for the child you've been protecting. Tom's jaw tightened. Lots of folks have come for her. I sent them all packing. We are not bounty hunters, Mr. Walker. We are her family's representatives. The ambassador gestured and one of her companions held up a holographic display. It showed Stella, but older and wearing elaborate royal clothing. The child you call Stella is actually Princess Kira, heir to the celestial throne and daughter of Empress Natalia. Tom felt like he'd been punched in the gut. He'd known Stella was important from the way people hunted her, but a princess? The future ruler of an empire? She was kidnapped 3 months ago by a crime syndicate called the Obsidian Hand, the ambassador continued. They intended to hold her hostage to control the Empress, but the princess escaped during transport. We've been searching for her ever since. And the bounty hunters? The Obsidian Hand's doing. They want her back or dead to prevent her from testifying against them. They've put out that bounty to make sure every mercenary in the galaxy is looking for her. Tom glanced back at the barn where Stella was hidden. A princess. He'd been harboring actual royalty in his storm cellar, feeding her chicken soup and teaching her to collect eggs. Where is she, Mr. Walker? The ambassador asked. We need to take her home where she'll be safe. Safe? Like she was safe when she got kidnapped in the first place. The ambassador's expression hardened slightly. That was an unfortunate security breach that has been addressed. And what happens when you take her back? She goes back to being a princess with people trying to kill her for political reasons. She has duties and responsibilities. The empire needs its heir. Tom crossed his arms. She's 7 years old. She needs to be a kid, not a political tool. You don't understand the complexities of galactic politics. Maybe not. But I understand that little girl has been terrified for months. She finally started smiling again. started feeling safe. And you want to drag her back into the same situation that got her kidnapped. One of the other diplomats stepped forward, clearly annoyed. Human, you have no authority here. We are offering you a generous reward for your service. Enough wealth to live in luxury for 10 lifetimes. Land on any world you choose. Titles and honor across the empire. Accept our gratitude and release the princess. Tom looked at the diplomat like he'd just offered him a pile of manure. I didn't protect her for a reward. I did it because she needed help. Then you're a fool. Being called worse. The ambassador held up a hand to silence her companion. She studied Tom with those glowing eyes, like she was trying to figure out what made him tick. You succeeded where our elite forces failed, she said quietly. How? You're one human with primitive weapons on a small farm. We had ships, soldiers, technology beyond your understanding. Yet you kept her safe for weeks. Tom shrugged. I knew my land. Knew how to be stubborn. And I actually cared about her as a person, not a princess. Before the ambassador could respond, a small voice called out from the barn. Tom? Everyone turned. Stella stood in the barn doorway, clutching her blanket. She'd heard the ship land and come up from the cellar. The moment she saw the diplomats in their formal robes, her violet eyes went wide. She recognized them. Princess, the ambassador said warmly, switching to that musical alien language. Stella responded in the same language, her voice uncertain. The conversation went back and forth for a minute. Tom couldn't understand the words, but he understood tone. The ambassador was trying to coax Stella to come with them. Stella kept glancing at Tom. Finally, Stella said something that made all the diplomats go quiet. Then she ran to Tom and wrapped her arms around his leg. Stay, she said in English. Her very first English word to them. Stay with Tom. Tom's heart broke a little. He knelt down to her level. Stella, these people are from your home. They came to take you back to your mom. Safe here, Stella said, mixing her language with English. Safe with Tom. The ambassador looked genuinely troubled. Princess, your mother misses you terribly. The Empire needs you. You cannot stay on this primitive world with this human. Stella's grip on Tom tightened. Tom saved me. Tom is friend. Tom is safe. One of the younger diplomats scoffed. The child has clearly bonded with her rescuer. It's a common trauma response. She'll forget about him once she's home. Tom stood up, anger flashing in his eyes. She's standing right here. Don't talk about her like she's not. You have no say in this matter, human. Actually, I think I do. Because right now, she trusts me more than she trusts you. The ambassador raised her hand for silence again. She looked genuinely conflicted now, which was more honest than anything the other diplomats had shown. Mr. Walker, I need you to understand something. The Celestial Empire spans 40 star systems. Trillions of citizens depend on the stability of the royal line. Princess Kira is not just a child. She is the future of our entire civilization. Right now, she's a scared little girl who's been hunted like an animal, Tom shot back. Maybe your empire needs to think about that. Our empire needs its heir. Tom looked down at Stella, who was trembling against his leg. He thought about her first smile when the chickens didn't peck her. Her laugh when her bread came out lopsided. The way she'd started to heal from her trauma week by week. Can you promise me she'll be safe? Tom asked quietly. Can you look me in the eye and guarantee nobody will try to hurt her again? That she won't just be a pawn in your political games? The ambassador opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked away. That silence told Tom everything he needed to know. That's what I thought, Tom said. So here's what I think should happen. Stella stays here until she's old enough and healed enough to make her own choice about going back. She grows up safe, learns to be strong, learns to be herself instead of just being a princess. That's ridiculous, one of the diplomats sputtered. She has duties now, not in some hypothetical future. Then maybe your empire's priorities are wrong. The diplomats erupted in angry arguments. But through it all, Stella stayed pressed against Tom, occasionally whispering that one English word. Stay. The ambassador held up her hand one more time, and the arguing stopped. She looked at Tom with something that might have been respect. You are either very brave or very foolish, Tom Walker. Possibly both. Probably both, Tom agreed. I cannot make this decision alone. The Empress herself must hear of this. The ambassador's expression softened slightly. But I will tell her that her daughter is alive, safe, and smiled for the first time in months. That may matter more than politics. She turned and walked back toward the ship, the other diplomats following reluctantly. As they boarded, the ambassador looked back one more time. "We will return, Mr. Walker. This is not over." "I figured as much." The ship lifted off, and Tom watched it disappear into the clouds. Then he looked down at Stella. "You okay, kiddo?" Stella nodded, though her eyes were wet with tears. "Stay?" "Yeah," Tom said gently. "For now, you stay." But he knew the real test was still coming. The Empress herself was coming. And a mother's love could be more powerful than any army. 2 days after the diplomats left, Tom was teaching Stella how to brush the horses when the sky lit up like the sun had decided to visit. He looked up and his jaw dropped. The ship descending toward his farm made the ambassador's vessel look like a toy. It was massive, gleaming gold and white, with banners flowing from its sides that seemed to defy physics. "Well," Tom muttered. "I guess we're meeting your mom." Stella's whole body went rigid. She dropped the brush and grabbed Tom's hand so tight it hurt. The ship landed in the field beyond the barn, crushing a good section of corn that Tom had been planning to harvest next week. He tried not to think about that. A dozen guards emerged first, wearing ornate armor and carrying weapons that hummed with energy. They formed a protective corridor. Then she appeared. Even without the crown and the flowing robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight, Tom would have known this was Stella's mother. She had the same silver skin, the same violet eyes, but where Stella's face held childhood innocence, this woman's face carried the weight of an empire. She moved with absolute authority, yet there was something fragile in her expression as she scanned the farm. She was looking for her daughter. "Stella," Tom said gently. "I think your mom's here." Stella peeked out from behind Tom's leg. The moment mother and daughter locked eyes, something broke in the Empress's controlled expression. Her hand went to her mouth. "Kira," she whispered, using Stella's real name. For a moment, nobody moved. The Empress stood frozen, like she was afraid this was a dream that might shatter. Then Stella let go of Tom's hand and ran. She crashed into her mother's arms, and the Empress dropped to her knees, holding her daughter like she'd never let go. They spoke in their language, words tumbling over each other. The Empress was crying, checking Stella for injuries, kissing her forehead. Stella was crying too, clinging to her mother's robes. Tom stood back and watched, his own throat tight. Whatever happened next, at least they got this moment. After several minutes, the Empress stood, still holding Stella's hand. She walked toward Tom with the bearing of someone used to commanding millions, but her eyes were red from crying. "You are Tom Walker," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, Ambassador Lyra told me what you've done. How you've protected my daughter, cared for her, kept her safe when entire fleets could not find her." The Empress's voice was steady but thick with emotion. "There are not words sufficient in any language to thank you. No thanks needed. Just did what was right." The Empress studied him for a long moment. "She calls you friend. She says you make her feel safe. That you taught her about chickens and bread and that you never once made her feel like she was strange or different." Tom glanced at Stella. "She's a good kid. Smart, brave, kind. Any parent would be proud. I am proud. But I am also ashamed that I could not protect her from those who would harm her." The Empress's expression hardened. "The criminals who took her will face justice. But that does not change the fact that my world, my court, my empire failed to keep a child safe." One of her advisors, an older alien with stern features, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, we should return to the palace immediately. Every moment the princess remains here is a security risk." "A security risk?" Tom couldn't help himself. "She's been here for weeks and the only people who found her were the ones you brought." The advisor glared at him. "Human, you overstep. This is a matter of imperial security." "This is a matter of a little girl's life," Tom shot back. "Enough," the Empress said quietly, but with absolute authority. Everyone fell silent. She looked down at Stella. "My heart, we must go home now. Your people need you. I need you." Stella's face crumpled. She shook her head and ran back to Tom, wrapping her arms around his waist. "No," she said in English. "Stay here. Safe here." The Empress's face showed pure pain. "My darling, I know you're frightened. But we have increased security. The traitors have been caught. You'll be protected." "That's what they said before," Tom said quietly. The Empress's eyes snapped to him. "Excuse me?" "With respect, she was protected before. Had guards and security and all your fancy technology. And she still ended up running for her life through a cornfield with hunters shooting at her. Tom put his hand on Stella's shoulder. Maybe the problem isn't the security. Maybe it's what you're trying to protect her from. You dare suggest I don't know how to protect my own daughter? I'm suggesting that she can't heal if she's living in fear. She can't be a kid if she's constantly looking over her shoulder wondering who's going to try to use her as a political pawn next. The advisor sputtered in outrage, but the Empress held up her hand. Her eyes never left Tom's face. What would you have me do? She is the heir to the celestial throne. She has responsibilities. She's 7 years old. Her responsibility is to grow up healthy and happy and strong. Everything else can wait. The Empire cannot wait. We need stability. You need your daughter to be okay more than you need an heir, Tom interrupted. He knew he was probably signing his own death warrant, but he didn't care. Look at her, really look at her. She's terrified of going back. That should tell you something. The Empress did look. Stella was pressed against Tom, tears streaming down her face, her whole body shaking. The Empress's own hands were trembling. What do you propose? The Empress asked finally. Tom took a deep breath. This was crazy. This was the craziest thing he'd ever done, and he'd once tried to fix a tractor with duct tape and prayer. Let her stay here. Let her grow up on this farm, safe and normal, until she's old enough and healed enough to make her own choice about being a princess. The entire gathering of guards and advisors erupted in protest. The advisor who'd spoken before looked apoplectic. This is madness. The heir to the throne cannot be raised by a primitive human on a backward world. This primitive human kept her alive when nobody else could, Tom said flatly. The Empress held up her hand again, silencing everyone. She walked closer to Tom, studying his face like she was trying to read his soul. You would take on this burden? Knowing that assassins might come? That you would be in constant danger? Already been in constant danger for weeks. Hasn't stopped me yet. Why? Why would you sacrifice your peaceful life for a child not of your world, not of your blood? Tom looked down at Stella, then back at the Empress. Because she needs someone who sees her as a kid first and a princess second. Because she deserves to feel safe. Because that's what decent people do. The Empress's eyes glistened. My ambassador said you were either very brave or very foolish. She's probably right on both counts. A long silence fell. Tom could hear his own heartbeat. The Empress looked at her daughter, at Tom, at the simple farm with its chickens and corn and old barn. Finally, she knelt down in front of Stella. My heart, do you want to stay here with Tom? Stella nodded, still crying. Do you feel safe with him? Another nod. The Empress closed her eyes, and when she opened them, they were full of tears. Then you will stay. The advisor nearly had a stroke. Your Majesty, this is unprecedented. Unthinkable. The heir cannot. The heir can and will, the Empress said with steel in her voice. My daughter's life and happiness are worth more than tradition. She will stay here, under Tom Walker's protection, until she is ready to claim her place. And anyone who has a problem with that can answer to me directly. The advisor shut his mouth with a snap. The Empress stood and faced Tom. But understand this, Tom Walker. My daughter's safety is now in your hands. I will station guards nearby, disguised as your workers. They will not interfere with her daily life, but they will be there if needed. And I will visit. Often. That's fair, Tom said. If any harm comes to her. It won't. Not while I'm breathing. The Empress searched his face and must have found what she was looking for. She nodded slowly. I believe you. And that is perhaps the most remarkable thing of all. In a galaxy of warriors and technology and power, my daughter is safest with a farmer who has nothing but his word and his stubbornness. She turned to Stella and pulled her into another fierce hug. They spoke in their language for several minutes, the Empress clearly giving instructions and reassurances. Finally, she kissed Stella's forehead and stood. I will return in 1 month to see how you are, the Empress said to Stella. Then to Tom, take care of her. With my life, Tom promised. The Empress nodded once, then walked back to her ship. The guards followed. Just before boarding, she looked back one more time at her daughter standing beside the human farmer. Then the golden ship lifted off and disappeared into the sky. Tom and Stella stood in silence for a moment. Then Stella tugged his sleeve. Chickens? She asked hopefully. Tom laughed, the tension breaking. Yeah, kiddo. Let's go feed the chickens. Over the following months, Stella flourished. She learned English quickly and started attending the local school under the name Stella Walker, Tom's niece. The guards the Empress promised showed up disguised as farmhands, though Tom could spot them easily enough. They kept their distance and let Stella live normally. She made friends at school. She joined the art club and discovered she loved painting. She learned to ride the horses and started a small vegetable garden of her own. She still had nightmares sometimes, but they came less often. The Empress visited every month like clockwork, and each time she saw her daughter's progress, her confidence in Tom's wisdom grew. She'd walk the farm with them, learning about earth agriculture, even helping collect eggs one morning much to her guard's horror. She laughs now, the Empress said to Tom during one visit. Real laughter, not the polite sound she made at court functions. You've given her childhood back. She's doing the hard work, Tom said. I'm just making sure she's got a safe place to do it. Years passed. Stella grew into a remarkable young woman who could discuss philosophy with visiting diplomats and fix a tractor with equal skill. She knew she was a princess, but she also knew how to plant corn and bake bread and stand up for friends being bullied at school. On her 18th birthday, she stood in Tom's field wearing her royal regalia for the first time. She looked every inch a princess, but she still had dirt under her fingernails from the morning's gardening. I'm ready, she told Tom and her mother. Ready to go home and be what I was meant to be. You sure? Tom asked. I'm sure. Because you taught me that being a leader isn't about power or tradition. It's about protecting people who need help. About seeing everyone's worth, no matter where they come from. She hugged Tom tight. I'm going to be the Empress this galaxy needs. And it's because a stubborn farmer showed me what that means. Tom's eyes were wet. Proud of you, kiddo. Empress Kira returned to claim her throne, and she ruled with wisdom that surprised even the oldest advisors. She opened Earth as humanity's first gateway to the galactic community, and humans found themselves welcomed into the larger universe. And every year, without fail, the Empress returned to a small farm to have dinner with an old farmer who taught her that kindness matters more than crowns, and that sometimes the greatest power is simply refusing to give up on someone who needs you. The galaxy changed because one man did the right thing. That was the most human thing of all.